Hello, I'm Derek Smalls, and you're watching, or listening, or both, to Rock Shop Live with Eric Broadbent. He's the Bent Broad.
You're watching Rock Shop Live, brought to you by Stewart Travel Guitars. See the incredible stowaway travel guitar at stewartguitars.com. Microphones for Rock Shop Live are provided by Rode Microphones. Now, for Music Gear Network, here's your host, guitarist Eric Broadbent.
Hey everyone, it is the weekend. Happy Friday to you all. Welcome to Rock Shop Live. Joining us this evening, we have singer, songwriter, solo artist, member of Smashing Pumpkins, and so many other titles, Miss Katie Cole. Katie, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
An absolute pleasure. I'm very happy to have you here. And we've got a full agenda of fun things to discuss this evening, from your solo career to Pumpkins to all kinds of other cool stuff. We've got a fun gig that you have tomorrow. We'll talk about that very, very soon. But we had you scheduled last week, and you got hired for a gig, so we bumped the show. It was nice that you were able to give us tonight. But can you tell us a little bit about that gig, what it was, and how did it go?
Oh, it was fine. It was just something corporate. It was nothing fancy at all. Just one of those. Got to take the gig.
Nice.
Nothing to write home about.
But a gig is a gig, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'll take him. Like, I'm off the road with the Pumpkins now, so it's just back to playing shows in town or playing out of town, interstate. I've had a few of those since I've been back to.
You kind of strike me as someone that doesn't really want to be idle too much anyway. So coming off the road, I imagine you want to keep going, or do you like to take some breaks?
It depends on what my goals are at that particular moment. If I'm ready to write like a new album or something like that, I'm always writing. Like, I don't think the creative part of me ever sort of shuts off, but I was happy just to kind of get back into a domestic flow. I was kind of craving that a little bit. So yeah, I dove into that for a couple of weeks, and then I was like, okay, I need to go do something like music now.
There you go. This wasn't a question I had on the agenda for this evening, but I like to ask this from time to time too of some artists. When you go into songwriting mode, do you kind of isolate yourself? Do you tune off outside influences and just kind of focus on what you're hearing in your head, or do you kind of listen to some things and see what's hot and kind of borrow some ingredients from things like that, or how do you approach songwriting?
Songwriting to me is sometimes a daily or every other day situation. If I'm not scheduled to be doing anything for a long period of time, I'm always writing. I'm always, I suppose, coming up with melodies. Song titles are a big thing for me, because having a good song title and then a concept around that will, as soon as you pick up a guitar, you come with that melody and you're like, this reminds me of that thing I was writing down. I can pair the two rather than coming up with this melody and going, what does this mean? I like to do things that way around. I find myself coming to better conclusions and quicker, I suppose, than just noodling around. But I've always got titles on my phone. I'm always using the memo function.
Nice.
A lot of the time it's like, oh my God, I'm somewhere in the grocery store and there's this melody and I have to get back to my car and record it. And then I listen back to the voice memo. I'm like, I've got no idea what this even means.
Yeah.
But generally, like, if I go into a mode, I will generally write a few songs in a short period of time, and it may only be a couple of days, but it takes a few weeks to get. I don't know. It's like loading up a program.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes that little bit. I don't know whether it's inspiration or just having that creative part of your mind open for a period of time. For all of a sudden, you're focusing it and channeling it and going, this needs to be said this way right now. And then once the initial song's written, then I go into the crafting mode, which is rewriting. And most of the songs that I have written, especially the last couple of albums, have been a process of writing and then rewriting. And they say good songs are written and great songs are rewritten.
Have you ever had something happen where, trying to get out to talk about getting out to the car, has something ever hit you so bad that you were singing over in the ice cream section or the yogurt section of the grocery store or anything like that?
No, it's been like in the shower.
Oh, okay.
Usually where like I don't want to electrocute myself. I don't want to break my phone, but it's like, okay, I got this melody or this line comes into my head that I'm like, this actually is worth stopping what I'm doing and getting this out. but you know, and that's how it works. Sometimes you sit down and you're ready to write, and sometimes like your brain's writing, or like for me, I mishear what people say all the time. I'll be like, did you say this? And they'll be like, absolutely not even close. So sometimes I mishear things and they're interesting enough for me to write down. I'll be like, that's cool. And then that ends up being a song title. That's happened to me before for songs that I've written.
Nice.
A song off my 2014 record, a song called Hearts Don't Bend. I misheard that completely, and it ended up being Hearts Don't Bend, They Break. Okay. And that was just like, I just heard, like, that's how I heard somebody say something. And I'm like, it wasn't even close, but I wrote it down and went, like, that should be a song, you know.
It's nice too with the technology, like you said, talk about a phone or just any kind of dictation device. You could be driving in a car and do voice to text and just scratch down some ideas. You know, you don't always, like in the old days, writing down on a little notepad or whatever, on back of a napkin, or if you're out for dinner or something like that. Now we've got these, you know, tech.
Yeah, it's
devices.
useful.
Yeah,
it's useful garbage that we collect on our phones now.
For sure. We look at bands like Metallica. Look at Kirk Hammett. One time he supposedly lost his phone and he had, you know, hundreds of, or if not thousands of riffs on there. And you kind of feel for the people like that who are so dependent on technology. You know, you lose that, and you know, maybe sometimes it's a blessing because then you're forced to write new stuff, but we're also very dependent on it too.
I've learned to email myself, like when I think I've got most of a good idea, either email myself or put it in my Dropbox as well. Great. So that it's in multiple places at once, so that, I don't have those moments of sheer panic.
Smart.
Yeah, well, it happens because you have to have a backup, and those are the ideas that you don't know if they're going to be meh, or if they're going to be the song. Sometimes it's like, well, these are the ones worth, I should back these up.
Yeah, that's right. Do you ever go back and this is really cool that we're talking about this, because off the air too, I got to learn a little bit about you being very, you know, tech savvy. But do you ever find like sometimes you record some of these, whether even if it's just a little scratch track, whatever, and then maybe you go back 2 or 3 months and listen to it again, and if that's a really good one, maybe say, okay, I'll make that to a keeper folder, and then go back a little bit longer, and if it's still really fresh and exciting in your mind, is that when you act on a song, or do you ever do anything like that?
Yes, sometimes. Honestly, there's various processes to writing songs for me, but I do keep those active folders. I keep an active document. I've learned to, rather than keeping like a folder of like endless ideas, I start like a new document on my computer each month for the songs, and I might port some ideas over, or just so I know, because generally I won't always remember what a song was called, but I'll know when I was writing it. So I can at least look back and be like, I know it was around this, this time of, That's how my brain works. And I just leave myself breadcrumbs for clues for things, nice. So I can go back and make sense of them. But there have been times where I've had like just a chorus, and I've been like, there's something about that thing, I need to work on that. And that ended up being one of the songs off my last EP, which is Things That Break Part 1, which I put out exactly a year ago. I had a chorus for that, which was it was way more of a commercial country song. It was very uppity, this song that I had, and it ended up being Broke, which is track 1 on that. And I went back and wrote it and went like, if I was going to look at this song, what could I really do with this? So of course I mess up the storyline, make things a bit tragic, but in the right way, so that, it's very relatable. Put some chord changes in there that weren't there before. Just took really took some creative liberties and some chances, and went back. And I always go back and forth with my producer, Howard Willing. And, whenever I'm thinking, oh, is this too dark? He's always like, he'll always be like, no, go darker. I'm like, yeah. But that happens to me a bit, where I will go back and work on something, and usually there's a sense of immediacy. Like if I find something and it's still great, if the song will either come out, and if it doesn't come out, then it's like I can't force it out. If it's not coming out, I just leave it. Maybe I'll rediscover it again at some point, or maybe that's all it was. Maybe it was just like this one small thing that's good, and it won't be anything more than that. Songs are pretty incredible.
Yeah, sometimes too, maybe just playing like when you do some of these corporate gigs or some cover gigs, and different ones that you do, maybe kind of testing out a song for the audience, and you might think, okay, I did something different here. They really like that, so let's take that and work it into the song. A lot of artists will do that and kind of bounce it off the fans before it's released on a record, and you can kind of get some vibe too.
I struggle with that. I think I used to do that in my earlier days, but I'm now really committed to, like, if this is the song,
It's got to be.
I'm gonna go through, and work through pre-production first and really know what we're gonna do before we even go into the studio. I don't really want to present it to other ears until it's the best version of that particular song that it can be.
Right.
I've done that before where I've played, shows or whatever, and played songs where it hasn't been in the studio yet, and it's been a very, close to what it would end up being. But I've always looked back in hindsight and gone, yeah, you probably should have waited, because this one guitar line or this one change that in the lyric or the melody makes it, even if it's just that 5% better, I'm like, you're kind of cheating the audience if you're just testing stuff out on them. And that's my view. Like,
No, that's good.
If you're a 10-piece funk band, you might need to work that through with an audience to work out where that groove is, or be in the, in a rehearsal space or a studio for a long period of time to work out that, like, the heart of where this song is going to be. But for me as a songwriter, like, I need to do those rewrites first or I get anxious.
Well, it's definitely a good work ethic, and I'm glad that you mentioned Howard as well too. We'll talk about him a little bit later on in the program too, because you've been with him for a long time. Since moving to Los Angeles from Australia. But we'll talk about that for sure.
Correct.
Before we go into the next subject here, I just wanted to say hi to a bunch of people over in our chat. They're jumping in to say hi to you for sure. We've got Music Therapy Laz, not staying for long. He's taken his better half out for dinner, but he wanted to lend some support. Scott Roos says he's hello from Nova Scotia. We're getting some cold here in Canada. Brad Miller is here. Six String Brian is here. Let me see. Andrew Bonica, a former Line 6. We talked about Yamaha Guitar Group. We're talking about them off the air. He's jumping in as well, too. Alex Radford is here. My Beautiful Butterfly and Ladybug show is here. She's going to be sharing a lot of your links throughout the program to your website, to YouTube, to Instagram, Spotify, all that good stuff. We've got all those links we'll be sharing. Stephen S. is here. Mark FX is here. Greetings, everyone. Continue on. I scroll a little too fast to try to get everybody here. The chat sometimes is hard for me. I'm a rookie when it comes to chat, and I've been doing this for 4 years. Edwin Crane is here. R2 R3 Locking Nut. You'll hear some strange names in here sometimes too. Sometimes I'll chuckle, and I got to be careful too, because you get sometimes some trolls that'll come in and they have these pseudo names, and I got to be careful how you read them sometimes. We're all good tonight though. We have a nice tight ship tonight. Rob F is here. Who else we got hanging out here with us this evening? Brian Arndt and says, hi, Katie. I'm not sure if I pronounced your last name right, but Brian is here anyways. So before we jump in a little bit deeper into your own music and Smashing Pumpkins, I was telling you this off the air as well too, but I'm curious to get your take on it. On a couple of our shows, I run some sister shows here as well too. We have different topics on other shows. And I've had your current colleague, Jeff Schroeder from Smashing Pumpkins, and obviously a mutual friend. He's been on the show a few times, both on this show and over on the Helix Hour, and he's been a great return guest. People love him. I love him. I'm curious to see if you've heard his new band, Night Dreamer, and what your thoughts on him so far.
Oh, great. I have. I've heard a number of songs. I heard the first couple that they put out, and then I went into Spotify and scrolled through a few more. I think it's great. Like, he explained a little bit about the band when we were on the last tour, like that he was working together with Mindy, and he explained, like, somebody explaining music to you is sometimes like you go into your mind and you go, I don't really know what that's going to be. But when I finally heard the songs, I was like, this is great. It's, it's got just enough guitar, just enough electronic bass, and she's got a really cool voice. And I just think it's a cool side project to have for sure.
I was telling Jeff with the first single that they put out, it really reminded me, like, I know they weren't trying necessarily to do this. And I mean, Night Dreamer, you don't want to think Nightmare on Elm Street or anything like that, but it does have a very dark, I could picture if they were to do another reboot of Nightmare on Elm Street or something like that, I could picture that song fitting so well into the soundtrack. Yeah.
It's dark. It's dark in the right. I mean, a lot of the touring members in Smashing Pumpkins have a lot of the same sort of, I don't know, icons. I suppose we all look up to similar bands, but
sure.
To me, I hear a lot of the sort of 80s new wave sort of influences in there, and it makes sense. Like, to me, it makes sense of. It's hard to make sense of putting guitar in modern music, but that makes sense. Like, in that context, it makes sense. Because sometimes, do you know what I mean? Like, sometimes you listen to some newer pop music with guitar in it, and you're just like, huh? It just doesn't gel the same way, or it's rock dressed as pop, or vice versa, and you're like, what? But this is a really respectful way of having an exceptional guitar player do things where it's not sitting on top of the music. It's still sort of woven through it in a cool way. I don't know. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. And Jeff's a very capable shredder, but even the solos in the songs, he knows just how to sprinkle some candy in there. And, he's capable of so much more, but the song, and sometimes the song doesn't even call for a guitar solo. A lot of music is like that, but just a nice little tasteful riff. And I really like it. I was very proud of him when I got to hear that. It was awesome.
Yeah, I wish him all the best. I think it's really cool. And he's such an exceptional player that, he could apply himself to anything, but it's a really cool band. I think they'll do well.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, they're doing some showcases and things right now, a few gigs under their belts, and that's awesome. But let's talk about, this is something I would think would be a very, very daunting move here. We're going to go way back now. We're going to talk about the move from Australia to Los Angeles. Now, you had, quite a few years, probably a decade at least of performing over in Australia, and a lot of times doing your own sound and running your own PA and things like that. So maybe we'll talk a little bit about that back home, what it was like there, and then what was it like thinking about making the move to North America, Los Angeles, and that sounds to me like it'd be scary for a young person.
Well, I've been a professional musician since I was 15, I suppose. I was, playing in clubs and being paid from sort of day one. So I've always known how to be on stage, and I learned how to work a crowd, how to sort of win them over. And I also learned, obviously, playing a lot of covers when I first started out. I suppose learning what constitutes sort of a hit song, and that it all sort of goes in there. And sometimes, like, I really didn't like this song, but then I'd learn the song, or I'd learn these handful of songs, and I'd be like, yeah, I get this. Like, this makes sense to me now. I see the response. And again, that as a songwriter, that all sort of goes into the subconscious, into the brain computer, or the creative computer, or what have you. But I did, I played, 5, 6, 7 nights a week, 3-4 hour shows. Like, that was me cutting my teeth as a musician, as a singer, and learning how to use my crafts. I knew I never blew my voice out. Like any musician that's played like that, you work your finger. Like, I'm a guitarist, so I suppose I'm a vocalist, then a guitarist, then piano, and so forth and so forth. But you work out, okay, well, by day 5 of shows, then all, the skin on my fingers is getting super tender by now. But on the 7th day, they shall be renewed. Like, you sort of knew how things would go, and it was very much a grind, and not stuff that I loved, but that was my day job that I did at night, and allowed me to write songs during the day. And I wrote songs for a lot of European artists and some Australian Idol people and all that stuff, and really I wasn't getting my fulfillment as an artist in Australia. There just wasn't an avenue for the sort of music that I was creating. Side projects that I'd done had been way more successful, and, being very frustrated. But I always knew what I liked and what producers I liked, what songwriters I liked. And I was one of those read the liner notes nerds. And I know everyone sort of does that. And now you have you can go on AllMusic or Discogs and sort of find out who did what. But I always, picked up the CDs and I just wanted to know why I loved the thing. So I knew sort of who I wanted to work with and where, and everybody seemed to be based in Los Angeles. All the studios that I was referencing and all these records that were my favorites were all pretty much in Hollywood. And so I ended up, of course you think, well, these are the people that I want to work with. And I've told this story before, but it's the God honest truth. I'd written on one of my websites, these are the, few producers that I really want to work with, and Howard Willing was one of them. And a friend of his had seen, his name on my website and was like, you should look at this girl. She's really good. And he reached out to me and was like, would you ever come out to Los Angeles? And I was like, well, yeah, I have a reason to now. Nice. I didn't just pick up and be like, I'm going to Hollywood. I'm going to be a Hollywood star.
Right.
It wasn't there. I had a reason to actually get on the plane. So, I did that, and, I booked my trip and flew over on my own dime and went into start recording what would be my first American EP, and worked out on my second trip to Los Angeles, I really need to be here on the road, on the ground here. And you can't sort of do this. I just saw that it was possible. Like, all these things that I really wanted to do were actually possible. Mm-hmm. not just in Los Angeles, but in America, like you could do these things that I thought were like one day this thing. It was a realistic goal that I'd never thought was that realistic before. So I picked up and moved, and yes, it was, it's terrifying. I mean, my first trip over to the US to record, I was horribly jet lagged in my rental car and driving on the 101 freeway and 6 lanes of gridlock traffic at 9:00 in the morning, and was like, okay, but you just roll with it. And I learned to sort of embrace fear as a measure for, doing what I'd done in Australia for such a long period of time. There's such a level of comfort, even though what I was doing was still very hard work. Playing all those gigs playing gigs is hard work no matter where you're playing them, but embracing a level of fear of these are the things that I haven't done yet. There's, that excitement is something that I learnt to, just take on board. These are these new things, and these are these goals, these bucket list things that I've always wanted to do. And, these are really happening. And I've learned to just say yes to a lot more things.
Nice. How do you think it worked? Judging outside looking in, do you think, did Howard enjoy working with you right off the get-go? Did he kind of mold you a little bit? Did he help you? Are there some things that you learned from Howard? I learned so much from day one. I was young and very much a sponge to, this is a very big deal. And I was walking into Henson Studios and Sunset Sound and these big iconic studios, and it was like my first couple of sessions was like Tracy Chapman was down the hall and Steve Gadd was drumming on this down the hall, and it was just like Australian me is just like duh, starstruck,
but just trying to act cool, like everything's cool, I'm cool, it's cool, it's super awkward, because that's who I am too. I sort of just learned to just sort of try to shut up and listen a lot. I think that's been, it's been a gift to sort of be around so many professionals like that. There's some people that you can work with that will share what they're doing, and sometimes you're in the room and just watching something on a different level happen. And I was so fortunate for the first couple of sessions to just be around, these immense musicians, and watching the communication between producer and musician, and they're using language and lingo that I'm like, I don't know what you're saying, but they're doing the thing that we now want. So learning that as well is another skill too. But yeah, I suppose I've learned what I like, what I don't like, and really from the get-go with Howard, we were on the same page. And if we weren't on exactly the same page, we'd talk through it and work out what was what, or, but it's always been a good relationship where he also doesn't let me get away with things.
Nice.
Like if a vocal take can be better, or if we can do this or work through this, it's just like, he kind of kicked me in the butt where I needed to be and just be like, you've got one more in you. And that's still to this day, like recording the last EP, some of the songs, like it was just like, a couple of hours and this vocal's done. And then some of the other songs, it was like singing and singing and singing until I'd really worked through all the different possibilities of where this vocal could go, to be like, well, how would Aretha approach this? I'm not Aretha Franklin. I don't have her pipes, but how would she approach this? And she would sing like she wasn't thinking. And I had to sort of sing through to get out of my head some of the time. And he helped push me in that direction to be like, you got it. Let me know when I don't, let me know when I got it. So yeah, I appreciate that, because I don't want somebody just saying, yes, everything's great. Like you don't sort of progress as a artist or a musician or a songwriter. And, even like my last full record, I remember being in the studio recording one of the songs, and we were doing final vocals, like pre-production's done, doing final vocals. And he's like, I don't really like that line in the bridge. I'm like, so you're in the vocal booth with headphones on and you're like, dang it. But, you can get mad, or then you can be like, you know what? Give me 5 minutes. Took headphones off, had a few scribbles, and, I'm like, you know what? This line is actually better now. And that's fine. And like, that's how I've learned, progressing beyond that to my last EP and what I've recorded since then. there's never any harm in rewriting, trying to get that 5% better, because you can always go back to the thing that had before. And he was one of those, he was one of those few people that actually showed me, even if it's through a frustrating position to be in, that can really be a really good outcome. Like, you can have something way better if you just try. If you don't like it, then but yeah, I'm very thankful for that.
I think that's the first telltale sign of a producer that actually believes in the artist. I mean, it's one thing, okay, we got half an hour, we can wrap up here, or else be the person that's like, we're staying here until we get this done, and just bringing the very, very best out of you. And there's a lot of good producers out there like that. Obviously, you look at some of the greatest artists out there, they've had, they weren't just phenomenal on their own. They went into the studio prepared, sometimes not even prepared, sometimes just write a song in the studio. But that producer and the engineer can just bring the best out of an artist if they believe in the artist.
Yeah, I and it's having that level of trust too.
Yes,
like they wouldn't say these things if they didn't really mean it, or like what you said, if they didn't believe that the song could be better, or you could be better, or it could be better as a whole. So I appreciate that, and there's few people that I've worked with that really have brought that out in me. So I'm very thankful.
Yeah. How often do you go back home? Like, I know you've got musical parents back there. Mom and dad both played were piano and other instruments, as far as I read. But do you go back home often to visit, and how often is that?
Sort of at best, it's once a year.
Okay.
I was back last November. It's very challenging with the schedules that I sort of have. To be able to plan well in advance what I'm doing. Yeah. Like, I know I'm off the road now, so I'm thinking about doing a trip back in maybe January or February. It's just a little challenging. With the Pumpkins, we toured in 2018, and 2019 being this year. I know I'm saying that like it was many years ago, but I wasn't 100% sure that I was doing those tours until a couple months prior. And then it was like, oh, okay. While I was on the European tour, then it was like, do you also want to do, what are you doing in August? Would you want to, so that's, being able to plan is challenging, but like those are good challenges. But yes, sure. I get back once a year if I can, and I'd like to be back more often, but it's expensive for me, and it's also just it's a long haul, and but I do miss my family a lot, and I miss my mom a lot and my sister. It's hard, but I know I'm here for a reason. I've chosen to live overseas to, fulfill this crazy dream, but it's been working out okay so far.
I'm sure they're very proud as well too. And look at now, we're talking, you're in Los Angeles, I'm up here in Canada, we're talking via Skype. So I mean, the technology does lend a bit of assistance to cross some borders and connect with people. I mean, it's not the same as being around and giving them a big hug, but it's still we can still communicate with our family and things like that. So that's nice.
I'm in Nashville.
Oh, Nashville. Okay, right, there you go.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, even still, we're a fair drive away from one another.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
There's a question from Edwin Crane in the chat. He says, what's the most inspirational point where you said, I've got to do this?
Well, I was always a songwriter, and I'd already started writing the songs that would be essentially my first American EP, and I didn't feel like I had the avenue to be able to do what I really wanted to do, and I suppose it was when Howard reached out to me, I was just like, well, yeah, it wasn't even an instinct. Like I'd put out music in Australia and it just wasn't doing too much. I never waited for anything. I've always been pretty proactive in my career in terms of writing, reaching out to people, reaching out to labels. Even in Australia as a musician, I had 3 different booking agents. Like, I never waited. You have to go do the thing. And I don't remember who originally said it, but it's always stuck in my head as like, you don't have to get it right. You just have to get it started. Because once you begin the process of whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, whether it's performing or writing songs or starting a band or producing an artist, whatever that thing is, you got to start, because once you start, it may not be perfect right away, but you'll also work out what you like, what you don't like, and you can craft and work out what's really right for you, what's true to you. So I've always kind of done that. I know what I am as an artist now, what I'm willing to do, what I'm not willing to do, but I'm always growing, and my boundaries and what I'm learning are always kind of stretching a little bit, because creativity is always something that moves and changes as you do as a human being. But never wait. Just you got to start something.
That's right. Well, even if it's writing a book, like you have all these ideas in your mind, but just sit down at the computer, or if you have an old-fashioned typewriter, whatever it is, just actually pen to paper, whatever it is, just actually start that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, for sure. So were both your mom and dad very influential on you growing up?
Well, yes, in both different ways. My mum sort of taught me. She was kind of the rocker hippie lady.
Yeah.
She's still like my favorite person to learn how to listen to music from. She used to sit me and my sister down at the television and be like, "We're watching Woodstock."
Nice.
We're watching. Okay, we all need to watch this guitar solo from John McLaughlin. It goes for 11 minutes. And we're watching this now. So she, and she introduced me to Hendrix and Janis Joplin and Led Zeppelin and all these different sort of artists. But at the same time, my dad came from the more classical realm. So it was, Maria Callas and I suppose Chopin, and just, it was just a little bit of everything. I think my eyes just went in different directions then. Nice. But it was that. So I had this balance of worlds, but it didn't take me long. My parents divorced when I was quite young. Just to understand there's a separation there, but that classical element always stayed with me. And I taught myself how to play a few classical pieces on piano when I was quite young from ear, just because it made sense to me. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that was something people don't do. But then I saw those similarities between, say, I don't know, listening to, Chopin to listening to the way that Yngwie or Steve Morse would play, and you go, oh, this is the same thing. Mm-hmm. Like there's no, like I didn't see, I don't know, I suppose I never really saw the difference between the genres. I just followed what was interesting to me. So I had this cluster of genres and artists in my cassette player as a kid, and then became my CD player, in high school. And I was, listening to the weirdest stuff ever. But it made sense to me, and like that's how I suppose I never shut the door on anything. If it was interesting to me, it was worth listening to.
I did read a little bit about your mom, doing a little bit of research on you, so I saw some of the things like obviously the Hendrix, Rolling Stones, things like that. So that's very, very cool. I really like that today, especially too. I mean, I'm getting introduced to a lot of more pop and stuff like that from my son, who you met off the air before we went live here tonight. And I'm very, very thankful for that. But at the same time, too, I think us as parents, and like your parents back in the day, introducing you to some of this music that maybe you would have not, necessarily, because you were born obviously long after Woodstock and all those things like that, you would have necessarily maybe gravitated towards that. But it's nice for the family to introduce a generation of music that might have been overlooked. And I think that probably, as you'd probably agree, whether you listen to it today or not, it's in the back of your mind how to,
If someone shows an interest in music, if it's your kids or whatever, I think you've got to expose them to these new things, because they won't look for it because they don't know it exists.
That's right.
Or they won't. If you show them, this particular band, then they can look back and go, oh, this new band that I'm listening to are just borrowing from that. Like they can put two and two together and work out the origins of. And like, honestly, every band of every generation has borrowed from another band from another generation. That's just how it goes.
Sure.
But to know that there is that, that layered effect within that, that if it wasn't for, some good 50s rock and roll, like you wouldn't have the Beatles. You wouldn't.
No.
I mean, and, it's just interesting the way that things work that way. But yeah, I think exposure plays a huge role. And I don't have kids, but I'm so grateful that I was shown, this music, because then it made me hungry to find more. Like, because I heard this, I'm like, well, what else is there? What other records do they have? Or what's like that? Just it makes you ask more questions. And that's, if you're hungry for music or art or creativity, you just want to inspire more, I don't know, more of an inquisitive nature. And that's what it does, I think.
It kind of goes back to what you said earlier about being a sponge. You know, you just once you find this passion, it's like, okay, well, I got to have more. I got to have more.
Yeah, totally.
That's awesome. And you look at young bands, like this is kind of sad. You know, when you say one band borrows from another, everyone borrows from everybody. But Greta Van Fleet, a band I love to death, they're getting raked over the coals for, they sound just like Zeppelin. I think they've grabbed the baton or the torch, and they're just continuing on with it. And I love it. I love bands that can do that. I mean, you would never expect these young kids, I call them kids because they're probably under 20, and they're rocking. They're selling out arenas all over the place, multiple nights in a row. I think it's awesome. And so who cares if it sounds a little bit like Led Zeppelin? I mean, I love Led Zeppelin. I could take another band like that.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I mean, I think you're right. If you, as long as you're inspiring something, this whole younger generation has probably never heard Led Zeppelin, and they may not, or maybe they will because they heard Greta Van Fleet. Like it doesn't matter, which came first, the chicken or the egg.
That's
it doesn't.
Right.
Yeah, it really doesn't. I mean, when it comes to music, like yes, you will understand once you hear, a plethora of music which really came first. But in the scheme of things, it doesn't really matter too much as long as you're being exposed to it.
That's right. And I'm going to jump out of order here just because I thought of something else here to say, because one of the things I want to talk to you about was your YouTube channel. But I think it's really great, too, for some of these artists, and yourself included here in this conversation, of doing covers. Weezer is a band I like a lot, probably more so thanks to my son. I mean, my son come around long after Weezer, but at the same time, he's discovering them and he likes them a lot. And I'm rediscovering the band and some of the covers that they've done. So some of these young kids now will listen to Weezer thinking Weezer wrote this song, Billie Jean by Michael Jackson or something like that. Well, this Billie Jean song is really good. Then they realize, oh, that's not who wrote the song. Let's go back and listen to the other artist. And all that, they discover Michael Jackson, or they discover, Toto, or, blah, blah, blah. So today I was snooping around on your YouTube page, and, a lot of good covers. And it's nice to see you being very active on YouTube. But I shared the one cover you did of Comfortably Numb by Pink Floyd. And I think you commented on it, or I shared it on Facebook or something as well today. I thought that was beautiful. What is it about some of these covers? Like when you go into it, obviously you put your own stamp on it. But is there a special approach you go into it, or you just kind of feel the song and it comes to you in a different way?
Well, some songs I'll approach like, can I even learn this song?
Right.
Can I even, and I don't mean, can I learn it? Any song you can sit down and actively learn, but can I actually interpret this with one guitar and one vocal, and it does the song justice? And if not, well, can I add one other thing to it? Will that do the song justice? And if I can't do it within those couple of steps, I'll generally skip the song. But I'll look at songs that either I've never learned before, or I've maybe played once before, or I've always had an interest in it, or thought I really knew how the song went until I finally learned the lyrics and was like, oh, way off. But generally there's songs that just either touch me in some way, or just every time they come on the radio or I hear them, I'm just like, yes, that song is something passionate or emotional or raw, or sometimes it's just me digging into old bluegrass or country songs, and I'm just like, you know what, I haven't learned any songs by this artist. Let me go do that. Because once you actually, as I said to you, like when I sort of cut my teeth as a musician, you learn all these songs, then you understand more about, I don't know, whether it's the musicianship or the way that these chords work together with those lyrics and those melodies for that genre. Like it has this sort of little intricate dance within itself, I suppose. And you can learn that better by playing the song yourself, not just listening to it, but actually playing it through and performing it through. Then you go, oh, okay, I'm understanding this now on a different level, as not just the song, not just the chords, not just the melody, but it's this belongs in this genre for this reason. I love Pink Floyd, and there's a lot of songs that I've covered on YouTube, and I generally spend about maybe 10 or 15 minutes learning the song. I don't labor over it.
Wow.
It's one of those, I learn them right away, I play them right away.
Well, they're
Sometimes
fresh.
There's lyrics just off the camera that I'm just like, trying desperately to read, that I'm trying not to look like I'm reading it, because then the performance is honest. So if I labor over something and trying to make something perfect, I don't know. That's not, I don't know. I think I suppose most of the stuff on my YouTube channel is just trying to be like, I can play and sing and perform these songs, and again, they're not labored over. This is this is live. Like these songs are live. They're all one take, and sometimes I might overdub some backing vocals that I think are desperately missing from the song, or some weird piano line that just has to be in the song because it's not the same without it or whatever. But most of the time it's just like, here is the song. Like, you know, it might take me 2 takes or 3 takes to get it, but I don't labor over it. I'm just, it's very real. Nice. And sometimes I'll get comments of people being like, why are you using autotune? And I'm like, I physically can't use autotune because I'm playing guitar and singing into one microphone at the same time. Are you insane?
Wow.
So I guess I get nice trolls.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I mean, if you're
that's a nice, weird compliment.
If you're getting accused of using autotune and it's just raw off the cuff, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah. I'm like, thanks.
I think, yeah. No, I love it. No, is YouTube something that's very, you know, you're passionate about? Is something you foresee keeping, you know, part of your routine for some time to come? I'd like
to. I think it's just another outlet. Like I'll generally cut down versions of whatever I put on YouTube to like a 1-minute version on Instagram. Yeah. And sometimes that's all you'll get and people won't even click through to see like a full version. But the people that have subscribed to my channel, obviously they get notified as soon as something's uploaded and they're excited about it and they will share it. And sometimes they're music lovers and have their own playlists and just save songs or whatever. And it's also something like my mum and my sister in Australia, like my sister will notify me and be like, I'm just sitting watching a new, you know, whatever the song was with mum and she loves it. That's the best one you've ever done. And I'll be like, okay. I know my mum in the sense that, as I said, as a listener, like she would sit through and listen to an album by whoever and just be like, I like this one track. And she would get like a liquid paper pen and like mark on the CD. I like track 3 and track 7. So I know that when my mum really likes something, like it's for whatever reason she's decided. But I know that there's a few of those songs that she really likes, so that makes me happy.
Nice. Well, I do highly encourage people to check out the YouTube channel and do subscribe and turn on notifications. And I just saw Butterfly just shared your link there a moment ago, so it'll be some time spent on there for sure. And that's the thing too. People's attention span today, you know, like that's why I think Instagram is so hot. You know, a lot of times people are in the checkout waiting to, you know, pay for the groceries or whatever it is, and they scroll up, okay, I can take a quick look at this. They don't invest the time like they used to. Everyone's in a hurry. We gotta go. You know, so wherever you can get them, whether it be Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, you get, you know, and then of course your full length stuff that's out there. You know, if you get them to the full length stuff, awesome. But if you can get them to the little taste of the stuff on Instagram, that's where it really helps.
Yeah, totally. I love the fact that like I can make these playlists. Like I've generally done like the covers that I do. I mean, I went through a moment of doing like all sort of alternative songs, but in a sort of more country Americana format because that's my genre. But people hearing like these alternative songs that, you know, you don't expect to hear, you know, Americana Australian chick singing Alice in Chains, but like I grew up, you know, listening to Alice in Chains and Stone Temple Pilots and obviously Pumpkins and Soundgarden, but that also went into my music. So those artists mean a lot to me. So I'm going to cover their music too because it's, you know, it's also showing it's, you know, the people that like alternative music will listen to that song and be like, oh, that's cool, and then people that like what I do as a, you know, Americana artist will be like, oh, I can appreciate that song now that it's in this version. Like you get that sort of different side of the fence from listeners, which is interesting. It's interesting when you read the comments when people actually will listen through an entire playlist of songs, and you'll know because they'll comment on like, you know, song number 1 of this playlist and then song number, you know, 15 of a playlist from like 3 years ago. And, you know, they're sitting there and listening to your stuff.
They've invested, yeah.
Yeah, I'll take that as a huge compliment.
Oh, for sure.
Because that's time.
Yeah, that's the thing. You know? Sometimes, you know, you'll upload a video. I've had this happen to me before, and I know a lot of people that are on YouTube, my friends, you know, they'll upload a video, and it's 20 minutes long, and the video's only been there for 7 seconds, and they're like, oh, that's great. I really loved it. It's like, you didn't watch the video. It's not humanly possible, right?
But that's part of social media. I've learned that. I mean, obviously being in the public eye the way that I am in, you know, various fashions, I suppose, I've learned that sometimes people will follow, whether it's you on YouTube or Instagram or Twitter or whatever it is, they might like your music or they might like your personality or they might like just the association. Like I have some people that I have now invested in what I'm doing as a result from me being a touring musician in the Pumpkins, and have now, backtracked into going, oh, she does this other music too.
Yeah.
And it's, it may have taken a couple of years for them to work out that I have other music. And that's fine. However you find what I'm doing, that's great. I don't really care how you find my music, as long as you eventually follow the, the breadcrumbs or whatever, or the yellow brick road to wherever it is that they're going. That's great.
Yeah, and it sounds funny, but there might be some people that don't know you play in Pumpkins, and they find you through your own thing, and it's, oh my God, you play with the Pumpkins, or vice versa, right? I like that. You say, it doesn't matter where they come in from, as long as they find something that they like when they get there, and then now they discover that back catalog, and there is that sponge again. Now they're the sponge, want to take in as much of the content that you've had over your career as they can possibly get.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. It's cool the way that things work out like that. I was playing a house concert a few weeks ago, and I, was telling the audience how, I'm also my side hustle is also playing as a side musician in the Smashing Pumpkins. And afterwards I had a couple of people come up to me and they'd be like, I love their song. But that's great. They knew the band at least. So that's great. But they're obviously really hardcore country music fans, and that's cool.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
One of the things I try to profess on this show all the time is no matter who I have on the show, I'm not going to say I'm an expert on their career. I'm not an expert on the Smashing Pumpkins. Now, growing up as a kid, I liked a lot of 80s, 80s rock, Dio and Def Leppard and obviously Van Halen and just, 80s rock. If I could put myself back in the 80s and in times when I got stuck there, I could live with myself very, very comfortably back then. It's Smashing Pumpkins. I would listen to them, but only would I know their hits, the big hits on the radio. And I'm not going to say I was a diehard fan. I was a fan like the next guy or girl would be, but that's it. But then fast forward till now, and I mean that in the best of ways, just because I didn't peel back the layers of the onion, so to speak, and just look to see what was under the layers. And so we got to see you guys twice in the past 2 years. And I told you off the air, London, Ontario, and Toronto, Ontario. And thanks to our friend Jeff, he gave us, VIP, which was really, really kind of him.
Hooked you up.
Yeah, and Drew, his guitar tech, was phenomenal. Good friends as well now too. But after seeing the concert, it's just like, wow. And so after that, Junior and I, for the next 2 or 3 days, and even quite often still to this day, we're listening to, the greatest hits and things like that, and the new record, thanks to Apple Music and things like that. It's like, now I hear it so different. It's like my ears I heard it, but now I'm experiencing the music and the layers, the songwriting. So that's why I'm going to kind of go off on a weird tangent here. Speaking of songwriters that I like, Billy, and Billy has some of the coolest lyrics, some of the best melodies, the song structure. I'm curious to see when did you meet him, and I guess it was kind of a magical moment for you guys when you got together. And what was it like meeting him, and when was that?
Well, because of my association, my producer Howard has worked with the Smashing Pumpkins since I think 99. I think that was roughly it. So he worked on Machina and Adore, and has kept a long-running relationship with them as a producer and as an engineer. And there's within the Smashing Pumpkins, it's a very tight-knit sort of family, I want to say.
Yeah.
So once somebody's sort of brought into a situation, they're generally in there for a long run. If it works, if it works out and if personalities, work together. So I was brought in originally when Billy knew who I was as an artist, because he knew Howard, and was like, would Katie want to open up a show for me as a solo show? And this was in Chicago in 2014. And of course I'm like, yes, because I've been a fan for a really long time. And, even my early cover bands in Australia, we covered Pumpkins. Like I was a fan. I suppose as much, I always loved his songs, but as much as a fan of I love these hits, and I didn't dig right into the deep cuts or anything like that. I suppose I don't know. I think it's just because I played so many gigs at the time. I was just like, am I learning this song or am I just listening to this song? I was in that sort of blurred sort of realm when I was actually listening to them the most. But when I finally met Billy and opened up this show, and was just got to see him do his thing, and it was, he's very tall and he's very welcoming, and he's got a huge, he's got a lot of charisma and a lot of energy about him that, it was very special for me, that first show, for that reason. And I thought, nothing, you know, that's it. That's the end of the thing. Goodbye. You know, great knowing you.
Yeah.
You know, because that's usually how those things sort of pan out. But again, what I was saying earlier, you know, there is this family thing. So Billy reached out to Howard to ask about me for a 2015 tour, which would be the In Plain Song tour, which would be the acoustic electro tour. Would I want to open up that tour? So of course I'm like, yes.
Sure, why
I think
not?
that's pretty accurate rundown of exactly how things. Yes.
Yeah.
So I was locked in to open up those shows, but then it evolved into, do you want to also play bass on a few songs during our set? So I was like, okay. And I play guitar and bass I'm a metronome as a guitarist because I'm more of a rhythm player. So
Sure.
to me, that was like, okay, I can do that. You know, I played bass before. I'm not a bass player, but I can play bass, and I've got good timing. You know, as my, you know, so I'm fine with that. So it was like, cool. Okay, I'm doing that now. And I think that was that first tour was very much an icebreaker for the crowd, because it wasn't just like, she's doing her set, because I did my set and I threw in like a New Order cover and was like, you know, playing the role of winning over the crowd, and them listening to my, you know, Americana songs and going, that's not alternative.
Yeah.
But anything on acoustic guitar can be interpreted however your brain wants it to. So as soon as you sort of parallel my songs to something that's alternative in the same set, the crowd will change and be like, oh, that's okay, that makes sense now. And then the next step above that is me standing on stage playing with the band. Then those cogs turn a lot faster. So I suppose I developed good relationships with the fans right after that tour, because they saw me do my thing and also with the band. It wasn't just a musician. It was like, here's a musician that also has songs. So that's been my association from pretty much day one with the band. And then the second leg of that In Plain Song tour, Jimmy Chamberlain came back to play drums, and James Ehart came back to play guitar on a couple of the key shows. So he played LA and Chicago, and a couple of shows that we did at the Beacon in New York. And the fans obviously lost their minds immensely, because it was like, this is really happening.
Yeah.
You know, this kind of reunion of sorts it wasn't just this talk anymore. It was like, this is really happening, and here's me, Australian dingo on stage playing bass. Look, but you could, you know, it's like you're having this, you know, experience, but it's sort of out of body at the same time. So, because I could see the fans, I could see their faces and what was happening on stage, and there was chemistry, and it was like, this is really good. You know, this is good, and you know, it was. You know, I finished that tour and was like, this is never going to happen again.
Yeah.
You know, every time I've had a tour with them, it's been like, this has been great. I'm super grateful. You know, every time I've been asked to play another tour. So then fast forward to last year, which is 2018, which was, we're doing an arena tour. Do you want to play keys? And I'm like, me and my bass role. Yes, of course. So I play keys. I've always played keys. You know, I'm a solid player. I'm a confident player when I'm on stage, because I know my job.
Mm-hmm.
Of course I'll play keys. And Jack Bates, who's the son of Peter Hook, who is New Order, and you know, those bands of playing bass, and he's an incredible bass player, young English guy, and just, you know, solid rock player. And I'm like, you know, because people, you know, some of the fans are asking me, you know, you should be playing bass, and Smashing Pumpkins needs a girl playing. And it's like, he's a far superior bass player. There's no question about that. I'm happy just to do my thing. And I really think one of my key roles in this touring lineup is what I do as a vocalist. And I think, you know, Billy has an exceptional vocal that I think a lot of people, until they really see him live, and I'm sure you went through the same thing when you saw the couple of shows, he can sing those songs, and the range that he's got and the power that he's got, and he can just go for however long the show is. Like the 2018 tour, we were playing 3 hours and 15 minutes or so. That's a long show to be playing these intricate songs and singing at, you know, your peak volume with. And his range is exceptional, but to be using every part of your voice and to have that power for that long that's no easy feat. So I suppose my job, as much as being a musician, is to support what he's doing vocally, give him the support, sing out those harmonies or double him where he needs to be, and just give it that little bit extra power, give him a bit of space to take a breath when he needs it. And I just like to really support, rather than singing on top of what he's doing. I want to sit there and just do the like supporting actor role. You know what I mean? Like just do that, so that I'm there to sing with him. And I think he got that very quickly, that, I'm not like other vocalists that he's worked with, that I know how to use what I've got and how to be supportive. And yeah, I enjoyed a lot, and I enjoy singing these songs, especially with him and his solo stuff. I sang on, I think, 5 or 6 of the new solo songs that he's got coming out, and it's just a pleasure.
That's fantastic. Well, we can give away a little bit of a surprise. You've got a gig tomorrow. Tell us about that one.
Woo, woo, woo. Yeah, no. It's well, I want to backtrack just a little bit, because we played in Europe earlier on this year. I was going to say last year, but it was this year. This is where my brain's at right now. What year is it? Where am I? But we were in Europe earlier on in the year, and we did a solo run. We were doing the band shows in Europe, but then we took a 2-week break to do a solo run. So Billy was doing, I opened up, and then he did his show, and then I would come out and sing a couple of songs with him during his set. And it just felt so good to play those shows, because hearing him do his thing solo is one of my favorite things of all time. You can hear the songs as they are, and you can't, like, he's got such a presence. It's one of those things that you're just like, oh my God, cool. I don't know how else to explain that. You've seen him live. I'm sure you've had the same moment too. But we're playing tomorrow night at the CMA Theatre in Nashville. I'm going to be the special guest. Surprise.
Nice.
So I'm opening up that show, and I'll also be a guest during his set too, pretty much like what we did in Europe. And it's just these new songs that he's got are really great, and I'm super, super proud to be a part of them, and super excited to be asked to play this show too. It's anyone that's going to be there is going to have a great time.
Oh, that's going to be fantastic, and hometown for you, which is nice. I
know it is my hometown. I've been here. I was in LA for a little bit longer than I've been in Nashville now, and Nashville has always just felt like just cool. It's just, I don't know, it's just like big small town. It's always kind of felt like home to me. So this is my hometown. Enough for now.
Well, that's good. I think it's going to be fantastic, and maybe I don't want to make you answer anything that you can't say. And you've always talked about, so we do the tour, it gets done. Are they going to call me again? Is there more future with you with the band next year, or is there something that you maybe can't allude to?
I don't know yet. I mean, I mean, honestly, when I was telling the truth when I said I didn't know that I was even going to be doing the European shows until I was doing them, and didn't know I was doing the American shows until I was on the road doing the European shows. So, I mean, sometimes maybe there's talk about me being involved before they actually reach out to me. But I'm just happy to have just a great relationship with them. There's all the guys in the band, Jimmy, James, Jeff, Billy, Jack, I mean, it's crazy. Like, they're all such great guys. So it's a pleasure to be asked to play with them at any time. And it's always a great hang. And I don't know. Couldn't tell you. Don't know what's in store for next year. I know I've got music coming out, but I don't know what's happening on a touring front.
Well, let's keep our fingers crossed on that for sure. I'll keep my fingers crossed for you, and I'm sure if they're picking back up, I know you'll be considered for sure, and I'll look forward to that. Go see you guys again too. You guys had some great television experience coverage. Some of the late night talk shows and stuff over this with the new record and things like that. That must have been a lot of fun.
I was very. I've had so many bucket list checks from my association with this band. I just can't. Sometimes you aspire to one day I wish I could. I've played, Wembley in the UK. I've played Bridgestone Arena here in Nashville, and Madison Square Garden, and the Ryman here in Nashville, which is the mother church. And I mean, these things that I never thought I would ever do, I've done, and one of my bucket list checks got completed. this year when we played the Stephen Colbert's Late Show, which is at the Ed Sullivan Theatre, and like one of my things was always like to play Dave Letterman.
Oh, right on.
And obviously he's not, just because I grew up with that.
Sure.
So it was always one of those, one day, but just to be in, I mean, I love Stephen Colbert. He's an incredible human being. He's super funny and smart. But just to be in that theater too is just like, to stand where other greats have stood and all that stuff. None of that stuff is ever lost on me. It's always that, whoa. And I've had quite a few of those whoa moments, and that was one of them. And earlier on in the year in Europe, we played some of those big festivals like Download, and it's like, oh, this is what 100,000 people looks like.
Yeah.
Be cool, Katie.
Yeah.
It's cool. Everything's cool. Remember to breathe. Are you breathing? Well done. Yeah. You have those moments where you don't think you're going to react the way that you are, and then you do, and you're like, I never get stage fright or anything like that, but you can't help but, if you're having one of those moments where you're either meeting someone that means a lot to you, or being in a place that other greats have been, I'm just super grateful.
Well, congrats on all those little bucket list moments for sure, because everyone puts things on kind of a list, what they'd like to achieve. And believe it or not, you might get a kick out of this. One of my bucket list places to visit is Australia. It's probably number one. Honestly, I'd like to visit England and Japan and things like that, but Australia. And I work very closely with the folks at Rode, who are, Australia-based, Rode microphones. Yeah. So it is definitely on my list. And, everyone always stereotypes, what's it like to go there? We're going to see big spiders and all this kind of stuff. And like everyone thinks here in Canada, as soon as they get across the border, they need snowshoes and stuff like that. We know what it is, right? But it's so high on my list. So I'm hoping one day, I'm 51 this year. I'm hoping before I'm too old to do it, I'll see Australia. So I look forward to that for sure, though.
You definitely should go. I mean, I meet so many people that's usually the first thing they do. Oh, I really want to go there. And I'm just like, I know the flight is expensive because I have to fork it out every year just about. I get it, but it's worth it. Like just to be there. It's just, I'm from Melbourne originally, so that's my jam right there. But there's something about Australians and being in Australia. They're really kind of down to earth people, and yeah,
I've heard that because we follow a lot of different people on YouTube, different types of things that they do, and just generally what I've seen, both from people that are locals there, and just the commentary we get back and forth. It just seems like a nice positive, a nice positive place. I'm sure like any territory you're going to have some riffraff and things like that as well too. But what I've seen, it seems very, very positive and inviting.
Yeah, aside from the giant spiders, yes.
Yeah, is that a thing?
Well, there are. There's a lot of things there that may or may not kill you.
Okay.
But I remember that was one of the first things I asked somebody. I'm like, there's a spider up there. Will that kill you? It was like, no. And I was like, okay, then that's cool. But yes, there are, there are some things, but you just have to be aware of what they are, and they're not everywhere, and it's not, you're not just like, oh, cool. There's just like, snakes everywhere or something. It's like any place. If it becomes a little bit more foresty, or there's more trees and whatnot, then yeah, there's probably going to be some more, but whatever out there. But yeah. Just use your common sense. If there's a snake, probably don't hug it.
So probably if you were over here and I said if I got scared, because I'm scared of spiders, I'm not gonna lie. I'm definitely afraid of spiders. I'm the resident spider catcher or exterminator here for the better half. Cool. She's getting better. She's getting more brave. But if I showed you a spider here, you'd probably say that's not a spider.
Yeah, I'd do that Crocodile Dundee move. That's not a knife. Totally.
Yeah. We have a spider that's about this big, barely see it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's cool. You should definitely go there, though. Don't worry about any of that stuff. You just go enjoy yourself, go eat some good food and drink some coffee, and you'll be good.
That sounds good to me.
It's good.
I'll definitely take your advice on that. I'm curious to see, with all the touring that you do, songwriting, the special shows and things like that, what do you do for downtime? Do you have any other passions like photography or art or reading? Is there what is a kind of outside of music that's a nice passion for you?
What is this downtime that you speak of?
That's what I'm thinking. I know. I don't think you have any, but I'm curious.
Honestly, it's really hard to get my brain out of that sort of creative realm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I suppose I love watching movies. I've just been I know I missed the boat horribly, but I just started getting into that show Mad Men on Netflix. Honestly, like I like to travel. I get to do a lot of that as a touring entity. So a lot of little things that, I don't take big vacations. I just end up trying to enjoy what I can when I'm already traveling.
Mm-hmm.
And people that have followed my Instagram, I've had various people tell me that they were super thankful that I'd post these little snippets of me being in this place or that place. And people were asking me about, oh, did you have a day off? Or, it seems like you've had a lot of downtime. It's like, no, I've had none. But like the couple of hours that I, got each day, I'd be like, I want to go see this, where am I in this city? There's this landmark or this museum or whatever. And I just try and appreciate wherever I am. And I'm not as aggressive with my time, I suppose, when I'm off the road. I'm not like, what am I doing with each hour this day? Especially if I'm in a more creative sensibility. I just want to try and, as I said before, like try and load up some ideas. I do like to travel. I don't read as much as I should. I end up reading more when I'm on the road, when you just get stuck with I've got this amount of time and I'm going to be on a plane or whatever. Honestly, it's mostly creative and mostly songwriting and just trying to be a good human being.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Well, it's nice to get
Yeah.
out of the hotel too. Some people are just trapped in the hotel on, before the gig, after the gig. So at least you're taking advantage of the, the scenery around you. And that's probably something nice too. I'm sure. I mean, talk about bucket list things. There's probably as a young girl, thinking, I'd like to see this part of the world. I'd love to see America. I'd love to see Japan. I'd love to see this. And you like to see Canada and places like that. And music has taken you on those things. So there's another little bucket list thing you can check off too.
Oh, definitely. I'm very, very lucky. I do understand that. But I do think it's, taking initiative like I did. Like I did sacrifice some sleep here and there just to go see like whatever, this landmark or this museum or whatever, or this, I mean, to a lot of botanical gardens when I was in Europe, I like being outside and in gardens and looking at flowers like a girl. But like it makes me happy. So I'm like, it puts me in a place where I can either be centered or just like it allows me to just be more creative when I'm seeing things that I don't usually see, or textures or shapes or colors, or, it creates a different level or a different space inside your brain that I don't know, to me, it's expanding in that way. So I try and do those types of things. But when I'm, back in my city in Nashville, I do a little bit less of that. But there's still a garden, like a botanical gardens here that I like to go to, when I can. But yeah, honestly, I don't get tons of downtime, but I just try and be creative and learn something new.
For sure. There's a botanical gardens in Nashville, you're saying?
Yeah, well, it's a garden called Cheekwood, which I love.
Okay.
Yeah, and they put on like holiday lights and they do different seasonal things, but it's just a nice place to go to. I'm a member of the gardens there.
Nice. Well, the reason why my kind of ears perked up there a little bit, obviously, I'm thinking of my better half here, Sandra. She's a green thumb, and I mean, she's has beautiful luck with plants. She's a really skilled green thumb when it comes to that. And we're talking about going down to Summer NAMM. We're going to Winter NAMM this January, but we're going to do Summer NAMM next year as well too. And if that's within reach, we'll bring her there and have a look. She'll be in her glory.
Yeah, you should. And Summer NAMM's fun. Nashville NAMM is fun because it's small and not as, I don't know, have you been to Winter NAMM several times?
Yeah. I look
it's a bit much sometimes.
Yeah, I look at from what I've seen, Nashville NAMM is kind of like NAMM light. You kind of breathing room and
it's not, you don't have to just listen to like, it's approachable. It's approachable NAMM. The other NAMM's just a bit like, by the end of a day, you're like, I'm done. Like I can't hear cymbals ever again.
Or, in the Winter NAMM, all you hear is like 90,000 arpeggios on, 12-string guitar, 18-string guitars. And it's just crazy
but
stuff.
It is amazing. And like I've been to all the NAMMs, many times, and it's, you always end up running into great people and making great associations. Like I've made, some great contacts there for gear that I use. And I've always approached companies with gear that I already use because that makes the most sense to me.
Course.
And I've made some great associations just from showing up and talking to people and just being honest and being like, I don't use anything else.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that goes a long way, brand loyalty for sure. We got talking about this off the air as well too, and we had our friend here in the chat just a few minutes ago. I think he might still be here. He might have left, Andrew, but he used to work for Yamaha Guitar Group, Line 6, and that's how I know him. And Yamaha has come a very, very long way. Let's talk a little bit. We've got about 15, 20 more minutes before we wrap up. Let's talk about, because you told me too off the air that you were always very technical back in the day. You ran your own sound or you had your own PA. But let's talk about some of the brands that you're representing today that have, endorsing you or you're endorsing them, and which ones that you like the most.
Well, I'm using Yamaha Guitars, and I grew that association through the Smashing Pumpkins, and met their rep there, who was very, very supportive from day one, just because they want to put guitars in the hands of people that are using them, that are active and are marketing themselves, playing shows, whatever you want to call it. And I've used several Yamaha guitars now, and I started off with the LL16. Which is a passive input. And that's what I played the most when I played guitar with the Pumpkins. But then I was playing the A3R, which I have one of those. And then now I have one of the Red Label. I'm pointing behind me. I don't know if you can see it, but
just a headstock a tiny bit.
Yeah. I've got one of the new Red Label series. It's I did a demonstration for them. They asked me if I'd do a video series for them testing out this new Red Label model. And as soon as I played it, I was just like, it's not like, oh, I need this guitar, but it was like, I would love to have this. It just felt, it was one of the, I suppose, I like all the Yamahas that I have for a different reason, but there was something really familiar about it. And I don't know whether it was, like, I've never owned a Martin. I've owned a plethora of other guitars, but it felt like a similar sort of neck to that. It just felt familiar.
Nice.
And I sort of told them that, and I told them that on camera and off camera as well. Like, it just, a lot of singer-songwriters are going to like this guitar because it feels, it's not that you want something familiar to you, but when it does feel familiar and then the neck feels good, and it's just, I don't know. I'm not so great with words sometimes.
No, I get it.
They come out of my mouth, but they're not that intricate. But it just felt good to me. So I was really honest with them and said, I really like this one. I'd love to have this. And they were like, sure, we'd love to share this with you. And I've been playing it ever since. And it's been great. I have other brands that I work with, like Sennheiser. I've been sponsored by them for a number of years, and that association just started from me reaching out to them because I've used all their gear forever, and I like their microphones, and I'm just like, I've always used your mics, so is there anything we could talk about together? And I'm as persistent as the next person. I'm pretty proactive, and I'm pretty forward with people that I want to talk to, and I don't think there's any harm in ever reaching out to anybody. Worst case scenario is nobody ever replies, or people are like, we don't have anything for you, or we can't work with you, or whatever. But I'm always of the mindset of use gear and reach out to companies that you're already using, because it's honest that way.
That's right.
That's how my association, I use Martin strings as well. And that's how my association started with them. It was one of those NAMM things where I, wandered up to the Martin string booth and was just like, at that time I wasn't playing Yamahas. I was playing my old Maton Australian guitar, which I love, and I was talking about Tommy Emmanuel, Australian, phenom guitarist that some people know and some people don't know. And if you don't know, please look him up, because you're insane for not knowing him. Incredible acoustic player, Tommy Emmanuel. And I was talking to the Martin Strings guy about that, and he's like, oh, he's just got a new string line out and blah, blah, blah. And so I got chatting with them, and I'm just like, I've always used these strings. That's how it works for me. I think just use stuff that just talk to companies of stuff that you already use, because it's just pointless. Otherwise you end up with, people are like, but free stuff is kind of rubbish if you don't use it, or if it's not as good as the thing that you want to use. Like, you're kind of being dishonest or whatever. Yeah,
you can't recommend it to your fans, because if some of your fans are musicians, you say, you're going to love this guitar, and then they're going to hate it. And then now you've done a real disservice to your fan and to the brand.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not. I mean, I'm a gear person as much as I need to be. I just want to find the best possible thing to use, and I'll use it until I find the next thing I want to use, or until I'll use something until it breaks. Like that's how I am, and I know what I like the sound of, and I know what I don't like the sound of, and I can, like I was saying to you I was going to say off camera, off air, off computer. Yeah, I've always run my own sound and, owned my own PA systems, and I've always known what I like and what doesn't work, or what brands break down the most. And I don't own much of live equipment anymore because I don't need to. Generally don't need to take my own PA into Bridgestone Arena.
Yeah, exactly. Thank goodness, right? Because that'd be a big PA system to fill that venue.
But I'm thankful for on my last EP that I recorded working with Howard, like he's got a really good association with Chandler mics, so we were using it's like the EMI mic that they've got, the red mic, and it was just this whole other experience. And yeah, honestly, I'm always up for listening to new stuff, and I trust people that have good ears, and I'm a simple person. Like the condenser mic that I still have is a number of years old because it just hasn't broken yet. It's an old Neumann TLM 103, which is kind of, it's a little bit of a beta mic, but I love it. Again, it hasn't broken. It's been accidentally dropped once, but it's still fine. So it's like, okay. Yeah, I'm happy to use what I've got. Yeah.
Well, the old cliche, if it's not broke, you don't have to fix it, right? So
yes,
but
correct.
I think you having that technical background, doing your own shows, being your own sound person, having an understanding of gear and how that works, I think that helps you as a musician as well too. And at the same time too, respect your crew, your backline people. You know what it's like to do all that stuff. Now they're doing it on a much larger scale than you've ever done before. So it just, I think it really works into your, just your work ethic.
Yeah, it really does, and I think that's part of. Yeah, you're absolutely nailing it. It's part of the deal. When I'm brought into a bigger association like the Smashing Pumpkins, it's like knowing who's on the crew, and I'm super grateful, but just learning everyone's names, what their jobs are, being thankful that they're working as hard as what they're working, and all the jobs that I used to do playing live, it's like they're doing it on a much bigger scale, but they're working a lot harder than what we are. We're just showing up and playing.
Yeah.
Like I'm not doing all that grunt work anymore, but on some level I totally get what it's like doing that. But it's I think
No, it's good for sure. Now, this is something I don't know about you. I mean, whether you play acoustic guitar, you play electric guitar, or whatever, you play guitar. But do you play electric much? And if you have you tried? And because we're talking about Yamaha a second ago, have you tried the Rev Stars? I mean, I know you've seen Jeff's on stage.
No, I haven't. I really haven't tried their electrics. I do play electric. I don't play electric as much as what I used to. I just prefer acoustic because it's rhythmic, and I don't know. So I suppose it's easier as a songwriting tool. I've heard so many good things, and obviously I've heard them and they sound amazing. And I love playing electric. I just don't do it as much as I could/should.
Yeah.
But
I've never seen you play electric, so I didn't know. So I thought I'd venture that question.
Yeah.
But borrow one of Jeff's sometime next time you see him and try it, because they're very, very cool. And then of course they have the Pacifica line too, which is kind of a Strat style, you know, so to speak, but the beautiful guitars as well too.
Yeah.
No,
Yamaha have come a really long way.
They certainly have. So did I read somewhere today? I think you might have, when you were sharing one of my posts. This is something I didn't know. Do you have a new video that's about to debut?
Yes, I do. I'm not sure whether it will be next week or the week after, but in the next couple of weeks, I've got a new video coming out for. I just put out a couple of songs. When was this? Last month? No, 27th of September. I put out what I would call a double A-side single, which back in the day would be like a song on one side of the vinyl, then you'd flip it and it would be another one. But this is digital, so you're not flipping anything. You're not even doing anything. But still, it's putting out two songs rather than one. And I put out two songs called Lullaby, and the second song was called Mile in My Shoes. And I just shot a video for Mile in My Shoes, and it's really cool.
That's fantastic.
And once I put it out, if everyone that's subscribed, if you could watch it like 500,000 times each, that would be, let's just run those numbers up. That would be great. I'm not asking too much.
Well, I'll get some notice obviously from your YouTube channel, but you have my email address now, so give me a little bit of a heads up. And I mean, not that my channel here is going to do much of anything other than get you a couple more likes, but just share it with me, please, and then I'll share it on our network as well too.
Oh, thank you.
Plus, I'll be greedy. I want to go see it first too. So.
Oh, cool. I got some cool players on it. It's a sparse, really a more sparse guitar song. So I've got Tim Pierce on it and Ilya Tashinsky, and I'm trying to think who else is on it, but just some good guitarists on there. It's a cool song. But I'll let you know that. I appreciate that. That'd be cool.
For sure. Something I meant to say, this is totally off topic here, but something I think you would appreciate. We're talking about, cool producers and, just and recording concepts and things like that. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but I had him on the show about 2 weeks back. John Cunaberti. He obviously played in the Rockets with Eddie Money back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but he's a great producer and engineer, and he's worked heavily with Joe Satriani, and that's one of his claims to fame as well too, amongst other things too. But he runs a really cool thing on his YouTube channel. You should check it out. It's called One Mic Series. Mm-hmm. So, and I think you'd love this. He started off, it was doing more kind of like, single acts and then some duos. But the bands, this kind of talks about your YouTube channel where you say you don't really rehearse too much. You just off the cuff and whatever feels fresh. They do that. Sometimes they'll have 4 or 5 piece bands will come in. It's one mic in the middle of the room. And I have to apologize. I don't know the name of the mic. I forget what it is. It's a stereo mic, I think.
Yeah.
But I'll send you a link later on to his channel. Cool. I really think you would appreciate it.
I'd love to see.
Yeah, just to capture that dynamic. And they film it now with video too, but there's no overdubs. There's no mistakes. I mean, there is mistakes. If the artist makes a mistake, it's there.
It's what it is.
Yeah, so I like that off the cuff kind of thing like that. And that's the same as your channel.
Yeah. No, I think it shows musicianship in another sort of level. And I mean, to me, that's, if you don't ever get out to see live performers, like that's kind of your best bet to seeing what someone's like in an unrehearsed, unedited environment. It's just like, here it is, here we go.
That's why I used to like growing up. I mean, I don't want to, when I use the term bootlegs, when it comes to bootleg records, I'm not trying to take money out of the artist's pockets, but there's all these bootlegs that are shared all over the place. I sometimes like listening to bootlegs because some of these live albums that we thought growing up were live were furthest thing from live. I was a Kiss fan as a kid, right? I'm still a Kiss fan. And, you Kiss Alive, you think it's one of the best sounding live records ever, and it's been overdubbed to death. So the mistakes, the rawness, maybe sometimes if it was a band that, had only one guitar player, so now there's not that overdub when he or she's going off on a guitar solo. You're hearing just the bass player. I really love that. Yeah. Yeah, flying by the seat of your pants.
Well, it just changes. I mean, I'm always a fan of alternative recordings. Mm-hmm. And I mean, part of when I put out the Things That Break Part 1 EP last year, part of the thing in my brain was, I did put out a video this year for one of the songs off it, but I also did a video series that I called the Shoebox Sessions. And I put some of those videos on my YouTube, which are me in the studio with 2 other players doing alternative versions of these songs in one take with cameras. So it's like, there's a whole other lot of technical stuff. Like, it was pretty ambitious for me to do, like, it's not just here, let's do some videos. It's like, here, let's do some videos and recording and look good and sound good at the same time, and try not to make too many faces, because I pull faces when I sing sometimes, because you're not thinking about that. You're thinking about performance.
Sure.
But like they turned out so well. Like, I really loved these alternative versions so much that I was like, well, and I chatted to Howard who engineered the sessions, and he was just like, let's just get these mastered. And so I put out this alternative, version of this EP, and I've watched, like, on Spotify, like, some people have, like, added this to their playlist, like this alternative version rather than the original, and I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like, that's cool. Like, I'll take that. That's interesting.
That's
yeah.
Right. They're adding it. That's all that matters.
True, but I think it's interesting because I tried to do that thing of, like, if you don't ever get out to see a show of mine, here's what some of this can be.
Yeah.
And that may inspire you to, whether you come out to, I don't care if you come to see me, but just go out to see somebody. Like, go experience what it's like.
Exactly. That's again, we had quite the conversation off camera, but we're talking about too, and so like a friend invites you to go see, I got 2 extra tickets to go see so-and-so, and you're like, oh, I don't like country. I don't want to go. Or if it's a pop artist or something like that, R&B or hip hop or whatever, or if it's a heavy metal band and you're not into heavy metal, go see the band, because you might have a whole new appreciation for them coming back from that live experience. Yeah, totally
agree with you on that. I mean, live, you can't substitute that. And sometimes, like, I think I can't be like, the new music industry. I can't yell at it too much and be like, get off my lawn, because that's what it turns into. But I mean, we've turned into this sort of, songs being, here's a single and here's another single. Whereas if you go to see a live act, you're not seeing 1 song or 2 songs. You're seeing, a half hour or more of music, and you might be a couple songs before you're even invested in what the artist is doing live, before you even are in the mood, or before, the sound is even good. So it's always a different experience to see somebody live, because I don't know, it's an emotional experience. And my favorite shows that I've done have been smaller and intimate shows, because you get to see people's reactions. They're right there. And
that's right.
Again, you can watch them having this emotional experience with you when you tell a story, and it just connects, and like the room just shifts. All of a sudden you're like, okay, they're listening to me now. Like, I might have played the first couple of songs, but now they're really listening. Just changes everything.
Emotionally invested. If physical contact, the eyesight, the emotion as well. Yeah. You mentioned one of your last videos, and we'll wrap up here in a second, but that was from Things That Break. Now, was that the Graceland video that you shot?
I shot Graceland, and I did that. I mean, I'm always trying to do something a little different, I suppose. We did that as a one running shot, and it was ambitious in the sense that the director was like, I really want you to be crying through this video, and I'm not an actor. I can't.
So that's tough.
So it was like, how do I, what do I, who? Like, it was all those questions that were running in my head before we shot this. But I worked out how to bring that on and how to maintain it, which was challenging. But I have such a connection to that song, and it's got such an immense, once I wrote the song, and once I did some pre-production with Howard, and we worked out, I really want this song to have that element of soul in it. So we backtracked, and I wrote a section that would have horns in it. So I went back and listened to, some good, old Motown, and listened to, some Sam and Dave and some Otis, and just went, what are they doing for their solos or their, bridge sections? It's always this huge melodic sort of shift, or this, I don't know, just this change that it just emotionally shifts you, or maybe it's just this chord shift that you're really not expecting to hear. And so I wrote that section in to then know we were going to go back in the studio, and then the horns are going to work over this section. And so to me, that song was a real connecting one for me. So I wanted to do a video for it, and of course I took my time before I even put that out, because it only came out in August, I think. August? Yeah. I'm like, what year is it?
It is a beautiful song, though, for sure. I highly encourage people to check that out. It's just amazing. But I think people are going to spend a lot of time on your YouTube channel. I mean, at least people here that watch on the show, they're big, avid YouTube consumers, and I think they're going to enjoy it. But I've had a wonderful evening with you this evening. I want to thank you so very much for your time. It was an absolute pleasure. And I'm really hoping we're going to see Pumpkins do something again next year, and fingers crossed, and then some, because I would like to come back and see you again. And it's been an absolute delight. I hope you had a good time as well.
I did. Thank you so much for having me on the show, and I really enjoyed chatting to you and getting to know you.
Oh, I appreciate that. And it's nice to know someone else is a bit of a gearhead like myself, in different ways. It's cool, though.
Yes.
It's fun talking shop all the time.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, listen.
You have yourself a good one.
For sure. I'll say goodbye to you off the air. Don't take off. We'll say goodbye off the air. But everyone, thank you so very, very much for dropping by, spending our Friday together here. Hope you have a very fun and safe weekend. For my Canadian friends out there, stay warm. It's getting cold, nasty, and we're about to get some more of that snow here by the looks of it here. So enjoy it while you can. Everyone, we'll see you very, very soon. And until next time, cheers.
Hey, you're still here? Eric Jr. here, reminding you to check out our full lineup of quality merch. Available right now in the Broadstash Boutique. Quality products and fast shipping. Visit broadstash.com today.
Video production services for Rock Shop Live are provided by Design 39 Media. Visit design39media.com for all your website, photography, and video production needs. Microphones for Rock Shop Live are provided by Rode Microphones.